Welcome everyone to the next chapter of our Women's Health Takeover. Today, we're shining a light on a topic that's both personal and widely overlooked. The intersection between MS and urinary incontinence. For too long, women's health issues like this have been considered uncomfortable to talk about or even taboo. Yet, the reality is that both the MS and urinary incontinence profoundly impact the lives of millions of women, often in silence. Studies show that up to 41% of people living with MS also struggle with urinary incontinence. In Canada, for context, urinary incontinence affects up to half the population, but only a quarter ever contact their physician to talk about it. Why does this matter? Because behind the statistics, there's real people. Someone that might be juggling the demands of work, juggling the demands of family, all while managing symptoms that are rarely talked about. Many women hesitate to share their struggles, not wanting to feel a burden or break the silence that surrounds these conditions. In today's coffee chat, Katie and Casey, two incredible people, are going to share their experience challenging this narrative. So I will hand it over to Casey and Katie to share their experience.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, if those of you who met Katie, you'll know she will bring a much lighter-hearted sort of tone to this conversation, which hopefully helps with the delivery. So maybe I'll start off, because I think Chris said some really great facts just in general about how prevalent urinary incontinence is for women, but also MS. For women, 75% of patients with MS are females. And so maybe we'll lead into that and let Katie share her story right now, and then we'll have some more questions.
So I was about 30, and anybody who's ever really experienced a chronic disease knows how kind of quickly it hits. And in my case, it started with me losing the vision in my left eye. And I didn't know what was going on. I went to multiple different eye doctors, and they just keep telling you, it's just dry eyes. Don't worry about it, it's dry eyes. Interestingly enough, optic neuritis and dry eyes have exactly the same symptoms, which was pretty startling when my vision started to black out. So it was immediately, I was in a hospital, and there was this ophthalmologist, and he's telling me, it's okay, demyelinating diseases are very easy to manage. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, hold on, I just lost my vision, and you're telling me I have a demyelinating disease? What is that? And he says, oh, well, it's MS. Like MS, multiple sclerosis, there's multiple different demyelinating diseases. And interestingly enough, they get me into an MRI within 7 days, which everybody knows how remarkable that is, and my MRIs are clear. So I go through years, quite literally 2 years of MRIs every 3 to 6 months where they're monitoring me. And then my doctor tells me, hey, you're in the clear. I think everything's okay. So we decide to have another baby. And interestingly enough, as you know, immune systems and pregnancy is a very interesting dynamic. And I have my son, and I end up in another MRI right after giving birth. And they go, congratulations, you have MS, which kind of weirdly felt in that moment like a relief, just getting the diagnosis and knowing I can start taking steps towards treatment, because up until that point, we didn't know what was going on, if it was just gonna hit again at all of a sudden. So, and that was the point where we were able to start talking about medications, and that's when everything kind of really weirdly hit. And then, yeah, to Chris's point, you just kind of quietly go about your day. You don't know who you can talk to about it. I mean, we had just lost my sister, and talking to my parents about me going through this diagnosis was just another burden on them. So I kind of started to internalizing things, and it was very tricky. So I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to talk to anybody in my family about it, because the last thing I wanted to be was something else people needed to take care of. So yeah, that's how I was diagnosed with MS. So much fun.
I want to pause and just say, Katie and I met when she started at BD. She sought me out and we said, hey, you're Casey. And I said, yes.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And she said, you have a daughter and you have a son. And it turns, I feel like we're weird doppelgangers. Our daughters are born a couple days apart. Our son.
12 hours apart.
Yeah. We have this ridiculous dog called a Newfoundland, which is so big and so absurd. And we both have the same dog, the same age.
Matilda and Taco.
Yeah, really great. My husband's mom suffers from MS and similarly was diagnosed right when Josh, my husband, was born. So we've opened up, I think, to each other a lot. Katie is very open about her journey and everything, which I think we'll get into. It really benefits other people hearing from your shared experiences. You also have a curiosity for life and information, and I think that really aids in your ability to like own your own treatment pathway and sort of your progression. So we're going to get into a little bit of the impact that MS has on your day-to-day life, talking maybe about social stigmas or what you think you want to sort of highlight from your journey so far.
I think it's so interesting because I think that the first thing that I really, truly struggled with was how to open up. And I mean, most people here at BD know that I basically have no filter, so they probably find that fairly interesting. But when you are diagnosed, especially early on, and I didn't even feel really comfortable talking to my husband about it because I was like, well, what if he's sitting there thinking she's going to be a burden when she can't walk, or all of these different things. Turns out I'm definitely a burden, just not in the way I thought I was. But it was very hard for me to even open up in that way. And then I learned slowly but surely that I'm really just isolating the people that want to help me, that want to be there for me, that want to know what's going on in my brain, what I'm scared of, and understanding just the absolute terror of one day I could wake up and my legs don't work, or what if I lose my eyesight again and I can't watch my daughter graduate college. And I mean, I'm a little less worried about Wes because we're not quite sure if he'll be going to college, but high hopes.
Logan's sister.
Right? So there is that just underlying fear. And when I started talking to you, and all of a sudden I say, I think we were in your office, and we were talking about medications or something, and I was like, yeah, well, I'm on this particular drug, Mavenclad, and you're like, wait, what? And I was like, oh yeah, I have MS. And that was when we started talking, and it really opened up this door to just dialogue of, I learned so much from you just in that very simple conversation that I started learning it was okay, that people aren't going to think less of me. Casey immediately didn't go straight to pity. She didn't go straight to, oh, I'm so sorry. It was very much like, oh, okay, well, how do we tackle this as a team? Like, do you know about this? Did you know about that? No, I had no idea about this diagnosis that I had been sort of navigating as I was navigating my new career with BD, which was really cool, right? And it was very lovely to be able to open up to you and learn that I could, and it drove so much change even within our own team. That was really fascinating. So I think that was a big part of the social stigma for me, was even just within my own network of people, is being able to truly trust that I'm going to be able to open up and acknowledge the fears that I have about the future, planning, like even things like renovations of my bathroom, like, okay, well, I'm going to have to make it accessible. I don't know if in 3 years from now I'm going to need a walker to get into the bathroom, and that's very possible. Unlikely, thanks to my doctor, but it is possible. So being able to kind of open up about those fears, joke about those fears, acknowledge that they're real, but that with a solid connection of a network of people, it can be a little less scary and a little less heavy.
Yeah, I think that the social stigma is obviously so strong. And I think as we were talking about, and obviously BD's connection to all of this is that 80% of the MS population will suffer from urinary incontinence, and obviously BD plays a big role in that. And Katie and I had many conversations about that, and I don't think you even knew that.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Casey's like, hey, did you know this was a thing?
I didn't say it like that, though. Let's just...
She didn't. No, that's fair. But that's exactly what happened. And I was like, I'm sorry, pardon me. And she went, yeah, this is a very real thing. And I think the benefit of that conversation was there are things you can do. And that was eye-opening to me, because even my own doctor, I sit there and talk to my doctor, and he'll ask me at every check-in, hey, do you have any bladder concerns? No, why are you asking me this? Don't really ask, and then just move on. But then that was how I learned why my doctor's asking me that question. It was through you. And all of a sudden, things started making sense. It was really powerful.
Yeah, and I think, having that open dialogue, and I think this layers in outside of MS as well, like women are are predisposed to urinary incontinence as well. It affects us more than it does males, and that's across the board from postpartum, as those of you who've given birth have known.
Yep.
Perimenopause, menopause, your rate increases. So I think that dialogue where people think it's a natural part of aging, people don't even know that there's tools to support you to help, which also goes into the stigma that Chris mentioned, is that people don't even ask for help, also from being embarrassed, but also they might not know that there are tools to support you. So we've talked about, and we can go into this a little bit, just about management, which is obviously what BD brings to the table. So different management tools, but even before that, doing prophylactic or like Kegels, pelvic floor exercise to help strengthen that is great to do in preparation for something that might happen. And then there's, medication and surgery. There's lots of different options that we've sort of explored together.
It was actually really cool. Casey's actually helped me navigate how I can guide my girlfriends outside of MS. I have all of these women around me who are having babies, and I just sit there and I say, okay, well, go get to a physiotherapist and start doing pelvic floor exercises now. And all of them are doing it, and it's really powerful to start feeling comfortable to have those conversations, because it's not really something that you would bring up with your girlfriends on a regular basis, but it's so important, and it's something that I've become so passionate about, because I don't want my girlfriends to think that they can't talk to me about this stuff, right? Like, we're all kind of in this together, and it's so important to just, if you initiate and say, hey, this is an okay conversation to have, they start responding, and they start feeling comfortable to open up and really drive those conversations too, which is really cool. See? You're spreading the wealth. Trickle effect.
I think equally, but yeah. Okay, so maybe another sort of question or prompt. How do you balance work and social life, and how does MS show up for you in unexpected ways?
I mean, I think that that's something that all women really struggle with, regardless of chronic illness. But I think that BD has remarkably shown up for me in ways that are unexpected, even just outside of the team. One of the struggles, or one of the things that really impacted me, was I had just started at BD, and I was so nervous if I should even talk to anybody about this. Luckily, I don't know if anybody knows my boss. She's kind of great for this kind of stuff. And I sat down and I opened up and I said, hey, I'm going to have all of these doctor's appointments. I'm going to have all of these, MRIs. There's going to be moments where I'm just going to have to go at a moment's notice. And it was, okay, tell me what you need. And the pressure that took off in a new job was insane. I never felt so supported. And then my doctor, I had actually failed off a medication. In all fairness, it was lifestyle choices. I do not inject medications well, and you have to do it every day, and that's just 0 stars. Do not recommend. So I ended up on a new drug to Canada. It's called Mavenclad, and it was basically, it's a very low grade chemotherapy, but it basically knocks you on your back for a couple of weeks, because it takes your B cells and your T cells and eliminates them, and new naive cells come in. And so it was a very new drug, but it was also about $150,000 a year. And that was terrifying. My husband and I were looking at each other wondering if we need to sell the house. And so they give you this like a financial advisor that's gonna help you navigate this. And they say, okay, well, we'll start with your insurance. And they call up the new insurance that I had just gotten with BD as a new BD employee. And there's like this 3-way call, and all we hear on the other end of the line is, yep, she's fully covered. And I'll never forget the sound of the financial advisor's voice going, I'm sorry, pardon? And she said she's fully covered. And it was, again, a huge relief. And it was one of those conversations that'll stay in the back of my head, because that financial load or that financial burden, again, that word of being a burden, feeling a burden, do we have to sell our house so that I can get the medication I need, was terrifying. And BD had my back. BD was with me, back when I was doing injections. I had the Sharps cutter. I had my BD Sharps container. I had, the auto injector. I think it was, BD was everywhere when I was having my lumbar puncture. Again, 0 stars, do not recommend. It was the worst. And so it was really cool to finally be with this company that had sort of quietly been there the whole way. So, that's definitely one way that, lifestyle, managing balance, and knowing that, I work for a company where my boss is so understanding of me just, Jenny, I need to go to my doctor. I can't. And she says, yeah, okay, let me know. And genuinely wants to know if I'm okay. And that's so unbelievably empowering and uplifting. And I'm so grateful for you. So, yeah.
No, I think that opens up a really good conversation too around health equity. And I think, a lot of us naively think because we live in a public healthcare system that everybody has equal access to these things. And I think we were having a conversation with physicians on the weekend, and they were saying how if I live in Vancouver, I get basically premium treatment. If I live on Victoria Island, I don't get the same level of care. And that's just dictated by geography. So I think, you work at a great company, so you get access to the great benefits.
100%.
There are these equity conversations that are layered into healthcare that I think BD as a company is doing a really great job promoting and trying to highlight where we can do better. And obviously female health is one of those that we're sort of focused on this week, and one where we're trying to do better, I think.
That's so true. And I think that pushing that even further, I think it comes down a lot to your family doctors. So I'm going through this, navigating this diagnosis, and a lot of people with MS just end up with a neurologist. And oftentimes a neurologist has a specialty in maybe epilepsy and not necessarily MS. So, and this is from conversations I've had with other people with MS. They, go into their neurologist and they have this one type of medication and this is what you're going to take. I got really lucky because my family doctor advocated so hard for me to have an MS specialist. And I love my doctor. He's so pro lifestyle changes, diet changes, exercise as a benefit for prognosis. And there's a lot of doctors who don't consider those elements in terms of your overall well-being. And he takes a look at all of the drugs on the market and says, what options do you think are going to work for your lifestyle? Having that element in your corner of somebody who genuinely wants to know what's going to work for you. Injecting didn't work because I hated it. So putting me on, and then he says, okay, well, we have this drug that you can take 1 pill every day. I'm terrible at that and will not do it. I'll just forget. And so he says, okay, well, we need to, right? I'm just the best. So, but then he found another solution, and he genuinely cared about how I was going to do on these drugs. And that is incredible. He cared about me as a person, not what drugs he thought was going to work best, what was going to work best for Katie. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a really cool dynamic and I keep saying I'm so grateful for the space that I found myself in, because I truly am. It makes it easier to have these kinds of conversations, but it's hard because I know that that's not everybody's experience.
Yeah, and I think kind of in that conversation, you also brought up a really important part about self-advocacy of your own health and being aware of what options are out there. And if necessary, sometimes your physicians aren't aware. We're putting together some educational videos around this right now, and we had some physicians review sort of our recommendations on different management and treatment options for urinary incontinence. Specifically for the MS population. And one physician wrote back and was like, oh, this isn't available in Canada. And I was like, oh, maybe we should remove this. And then Katie's like Googling, she's like, no, I can see it here and here and here. And it's like, he just wasn't aware that was a viable option. It's like an electrical stimulation where you can put on your ankle down here and it stimulates the nerves in your sacral to help with urinary incontinence. So very cool technology that was previously like invasive. You had to put an implant inside of you, and now it's getting less and less invasive, so more accessible to the general population. But like I think we see the same thing with PureWick, which is a great option, especially for patients with poor mobility, which do predominantly affect MS patients, but they can get a better night's sleep. It's a great product that still not a lot of Canadians know about. So I think patients are now more self-advocating for themselves, knowing different options and the importance of that, because your healthcare practitioner might not know what's best or what's available.
It's so true. And one of the things that I love about PureWick is, and I think you were the one who brought this up, was PureWick isn't just about the patient themselves, it's also about the caregivers. And this, you're going to hear me say the word burden a lot, but I think that a lot of women, it'll resonate with them, is this idea of we're the caregivers. And the idea of having somebody to have to take care of me is terrifying. And so knowing that there's something like PureWick out there that'll actually allow caregivers to get a good night's sleep, or not worry about somebody taking a fall in the middle of the night is so neat. It's so fascinating to be part of those conversations with MS Canada and all of that. So it's so cool.
For sure. Okay. So maybe let's talk about the importance of connecting with others, because I think from an MS perspective, I'm sure you feel this. I think from a urinary incontinence perspective in general and the stigma around it, like how does this impact your life, or what's your approach?
Well, I think it's really funny because this all kind of started, I don't know if you guys have wandered up to the BDI, but if you remember us doing Spros with Joe, this was kind of how these conversations all started, loudly, I might add, where we would just get a bunch of people together and have an espresso at 2:00 every day. And that was where I just casually opened up to Joe Pescari, and he was like, MS, and he was asking questions, and it was really, really positive. And he very, very much took this, I wonder if we can do more approach. And it was like, wait, what? And then, I want to build a relationship with MS Canada, and I want, KG, do you want to be a part of it? And it was like, yeah, I do want to be a part of it. And all of a sudden, I'm standing at the MS walk with my entire team. I have, Rob cutting off his sleeves. I have Cynthia with her blind dog. I have I have our daughters playing together like they're best friends. And what I don't think, and this is hard for me to admit, but going to those MS walks is really, really hard for me. It's incredibly scary because you see people there that are far more advanced than you, and you ask, is this my future? Is this what is in store for me? And, I do get very emotional. I rely on my family really, to kind of lift me up and support me through that. But I had an entire other group of people there with, Joe with his, MS walk, I walk for KG. And I had this new kind of uplifting notion that it wasn't that scary because I had all of these other people that were there walking for, MS Canada and the initiative there, but it felt personal and it was less scary, right? It was, I could laugh, I could joke, I could see past that fear, which also you feel very guilty about, right? Like you see these people with walkers and wheelchairs and you get these very selfish, is this what's gonna happen to me? And then you feel guilty about it. But I had my entire team around me. I had my family there. I had our kids playing. We had, the boys in the wagon, and it was.
Our daughter's asking every lap, "Can we get an ice cream yet? Can we get an ice cream yet?"
Did we ever end up getting them an ice cream?
Oh yeah. Final lap.
Final lap. But it was such a good day. It was such a good day, and normally those walks, like I said, are very hard for me. But that one's going down in history as a very, very good day. So for me to be able to find that connection, to open up to my team, to have them show up for me in such an unexpected way was remarkably powerful. And if you ask them, they're probably like, well, yeah, we just went to a walk. It doesn't seem like this big of a deal. It really resonated. And I hope you guys know that. Like, I hope you realize the impact that you have on people by just showing up, by just hearing people when they talk and just showing up. It was a really good day.
What do you want to get across to everybody, or how do you want people to think about MS going forward, or what are you most excited about that's happening already, maybe?
In terms of like MS research?
Yeah,
or just
research kind of.
Well, oh my gosh, you're gonna throw me down a rabbit hole. So there's so much research that's going on right now with MS, which is so cool. It was about a year ago that they actually purchased, I think it was the US military's health data, and they started running all of these numbers and found I don't want to use the wrong word if it's causation correlation between Epstein-Barr virus and MS. So now they're starting to believe that MS is actually viral based, which is so cool and opens up a whole world of treatment options, including actually vaccines. Thank you. Vaccines for preventative measures, which is so unbelievably cool because, I mean, it's not a cure, but it's effectively a cure. So that for me is so fascinating. And I think what's really powerful right now is that MS is not the same diagnosis today as it was 15 years ago. 15 years ago, a lot of people would have said it felt like a death sentence. And it doesn't feel like that now. There's so many different options and different types of medications. What's really cool is that there are medications that you can take that actually allow you, because as you know, MS impacts childbearing women predominantly. So you can have MS and still have more kids, which is so cool. And yeah, I think there's so many things that are coming out now that I'm just like, I'm always reading new articles, new videos from different scientists, different people who are involved in pharma that have all of these different ideas. And yeah, it's cool. It's very cool.
So the second part of my question, what would be like the advice you want to give to people going forward as it relates to how can we show up for you, for others with MS, for those with urinary incontinence? How can everybody support each other?
So I think it's just about, like I said, showing up. I think it's about, I was blessed. I found a Casey, and I've said it before, but everybody needs one in their life. Somebody that you can, and somebody that you feel that you can open up to, especially at work. Do you guys realize how much time we spend together? It's a lot. And we have to be able to rally around one another. And this worked for me. Opening up to you, opening up to my team, that worked for me. It's not gonna work for everybody. But if somebody chooses to open up to you, be their Casey. Be somebody who just listens, doesn't immediately jump to pity, I'm so sorry, or just show up, just be there, just listen, and you'd be surprised at how the impact that has. We don't all need to be, interconnected as family, but man, it helps because that's the team that showed up for me and continues to do so, and it's so cool.
Yeah, I think that's really profound. I think there's more and more research coming out to show the impact of not only on your emotional and physical, but your physical well-being on social isolation. And that came out a lot during COVID. But I've read studies, the best thing you can do for your physical and mental health as you age is going for a walk with a friend, because you're physically moving, you're socially engaged, you're preventing that isolation, which I think goes down a huge rabbit hole. That and weight training. As Chris will know, we've talked about it. As you get older, weight training is very important.
So if you want to, again, fall down this rabbit hole, I think one of the next sections is talking about lifestyle changes and what that means for MS. My best friend is a bit of a menace, I will admit this. And she calls me up one day and she goes, hey, so I'm gonna start running. And my response was, ew, why? And she says to me, she goes, because I wanna see if I can run a 10K. And I went, good luck with that. Let me know how it goes. And so I hang up on her because I don't wanna have that conversation any longer. And then she had started this wheel turning in my head. And she goes, and all I could hear is the back of my brain going, okay, I can run now. What if one day I want to and I can't? And that, triggered this real fear that resulted in me calling her up and going, I'm in. She went, pardon? And I went, I know, I'm surprised too, okay. And so we started training. And I started running and I was awful at it, but I fell in love with the after effects of running. I came home, I felt relaxed, I felt, but energized at the same time. I felt really good and hated every step of it. But when I got home, it felt great. And then, I was noticing shin splints and all of these sort of after effects of running. And my husband wanted to support me and he didn't quite know how he could support me through this whole journey. And so he goes, okay, well, you want to get better at running, we need to start training. And I'm going to start weight training you. And I went,
oh, I'm excited for this. I didn't know this too. You need more context of your husband, what his profession is.
Oh, sorry. He'll probably not love this. My husband works for Peel Regional Police. So he's very, very fit. He's very athletic and he trains a lot. He'll want you all to know he just recently benched 3 plates on each side. So he says to me, he goes, okay, I'm gonna start training you. I'm gonna start, we'll go into the backyard. We've got our basement gym, we're gonna start. And the next thing I know, he has me flipping giant tractor tires. He has me doing farmer's carries. He has me doing more burpees than should be legal.
I can only imagine.
and he's like, but what was interesting is my running started getting better. And I was running farther, and next thing I know, I'm running 3K, I'm running 4K, I'm just the cusp of running 5K, and I have to go in for my next MRI. And I go in for my MRIs, and a couple weeks later, I'm back in front of my doctor, and he goes, what you been doing differently? And I went, I don't know. What do you mean? He goes, you've been exercising? He's like, you look great. What's going on? And I went, well, yeah, I've been running, and I've been running 3 or 4 times a week, and my husband's been, because to Darren, it felt something physical that he could do with me, something that he really felt was benefiting me, and he loved that. And we learned that my lesions had shrunk. And my doctor said there is currently what we believe to be a direct relation between high intensity training, but you have to really hate your life. Like you need to be on the verge of death. And then it actually, and I'm like, well, thank Darren.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. But it was benefiting me in that my brain was quite literally healing itself. And it was so cool. Like I tell Darren about this, I was like, this is you. This is, interestingly enough, Sam won't let me live it down because she's so like, that was me. I made you run. But it worked. So Darren, he goes out and he buys a bottle of champagne and we celebrate because it's so exciting. This felt like such a win. And, on all of the added benefits to just lifestyle changes, simple lifestyle changes and lifting weights. So it's true, it transcends even into MS and all of the, brain inflammation. I think that my only really closing remark is thank you. Thank you for always showing up.
And ditto, thank you. I think I personally I'm always in awe. I'm so emotional as I get older. In awe of your bravery towards this, you're willing to share your experience, and I think ultimately it really helps everybody in how they show up bravely to their own life.
Thank you.